Hey, welcome in.
Welcome to the Arrowhead Addict podcast.
We are here coming to you live. Let me tell you, the dopamine, it's flowing.
I am damn excited. Damn excited.
That's a terrible drum roll.
Oh!
Boy, how you doing, man? Patrick.
Will Sterling.
Yeah.
Super Bowl champion, two-time Pro Bowler, and Trent Green. Trent Green, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
And he picked it up! He picked it up! He's gonna score! And we'll see you next week, but until then, as always, go Chiefs. Welcome into the Intangibles, brought to you by Arrowhead Addict. My name is Price Carter, and I am joined by always a black screen, as Christian had some tech issues, like literally as we were rolling up to the show. He will be back on shortly, but it's a great day here at Arrowhead Addict at the Intangibles, because today we are breaking down the Chiefs 2025 draft class. The worst part is that it's over, honestly. For those of us who love the draft like myself, I'm sad that it's over. I will miss it dearly. It's one of those things too, that you study all these guys, you lock in on these guys, and then your brain just turns into a shredder, and it's like, oh, well, I don't need stuff about this 7th round cornerback anymore, so we'll just put it in the shredder. But then, like, one day I'll be watching a game or preseason, and I'm like, hey, I kind of like Jarius Monroe out of Tulane. I liked him. But it's good to have Christian with me. Christian, are you ready to I know I mentioned it to you before, but are you ready to go over your 2026 top 25 big board?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's still mock draft season, no matter what they tell you. I did a preliminary 2026 first round mock for the Chiefs yesterday, and let me tell you, dude, we're gonna be ready for that draft too when it comes out.
Can we just, if I have to see one more like 2026 mock with Arch Manning at 1-1 or 1-2 or 1-3, I'm gonna flip. First off, like, can we let the man, like, there's some other quarterbacks in the class next year, like Nussmeier, Lenore Sellers out of South Carolina, who's really exciting, kind of flashes of Jaden Daniels. But, like, can we let Arch Manning be good first? Like, right now, Arch Manning's proven he's a really good scrambler. That's about it. He had a great game against a nobody school earlier this year when Ewers was down. I don't know. I just, like, if it was any other quarterback in his last, if his name was literally Arch Johnson, he would not be put in this conversation. But I get it. And plus, he's not coming out next year. I don't care what they say. The Mannings have always went back for their senior year. He's only going to have 1 year starting underneath his belt. And oh, by the way, he's getting paid millions in NIL at Texas. Like, he's going back for a senior year.
Oh yeah, 100%. We're to the point now where, like, if you're even a semi-recognizable name, you're coming back probably just based off the money. I saw something last year that was like, I mean, I know it's Brock Purdy, but it was like every SEC quarterback was getting paid more than Brock Purdy was his.
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
yeah,
as their final year.
I'm excited for the 20. This is awful. I'm excited for the 2027 quarterback class, though, because that will be Arch Manning, Dylan Raiola, my man, and also DJ Lagway will all be in that class. So that will be a good class. So whenever people are like, "Oh, next year's quarterback class is gonna be great," you never know. But 2027 going to be a great quarterback class. But I guess we will stop talking about the 2027 draft. Oh, and also that draft is going to have Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith.
Oh my God, Price!
That
you
draft
have to
is
stop.
going to
You
be
have to stop.
I want those two guys to be on the cover of NCAA. Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith. That would go so hard.
Oh, dude, that would be badass.
By the way, 2 out of the 3 guys, like obviously Travis Hunter, the 2nd overall pick, Quinn Ewers and his House of Death, which I don't know if you saw this. I like hunting. Did you see the picture of Quinn Ewers' house?
Oh yes, I did,
Yeah,
with
okay.
all those mounts in it. Yeah.
Yeah, someone said that he kills a new animal every pick that he's not made, that he's not selected, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger. But yeah, Quinn Ewers didn't get drafted until the 7th round late. Donovan Edwards, a UDFA, and then Travis Hunter, the 2nd overall pick. So, like, the amount of picks between the 3 guys, like Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Williams, we're not messing with those 2 guys. Those guys are going in the top 10, top 5. Get those guys on the cover. Would go absolutely hard. But we're going to go hard here today. We've got a whole draft to talk about. We're going to be handing out our grades. We're going to be analyzing every pick, thank you to those of you who joined us on Thursday night for what was an awesome event where we were able to go live and talk about every pick. Had as many as 8 people in there at some times, talking Chiefs, talking and reacting to all of the things that were happening. It was a great time. Hey, guess what? The great thing about draft content too is it's like evergreen. The Chiefs, their picks aren't going to change, right? So you can go back and listen to that. Check that out on YouTube. It was great to have everyone be a part of that, and really I'm really proud of everything we've done here at Arrowhead Addict. Whenever I came over a couple years ago, we had draft coverage, but nothing like what we have now, where we have a show that's pretty much dedicated to it. And I feel like we've really expanded our coverage and have the big board now that's tailored towards the Chiefs' needs. And I've been really proud of what we've done. So thank you for all those who have followed along and liked and subscribed and done all the things. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, and just to give you your flowers, Price, like you've kind of spearheaded this whole thing. I came over, what would you say, like about a year after
about a
you
year
did,
ago.
maybe? And so we had both worked, with each other in the past as well. So it just seemed like a perfect fit. And dude, I'm excited. We've got a whole nother year where we can really dive into these prospects and we can talk about the ones that they just picked, which, should be really fun too.
Yeah, and not to get too much into it, because again, we're not getting into the 26 or 27 class, but I think we've got some really exciting things coming down the pipe that are only just going to increase our coverage and increase our visibility in that space. So really excited about that. But let's get into this class here. So the Chiefs, they come away with 7 picks. It was kind of interesting that the way that they did it, right? They maneuvered the board quite a bit. At one point, they had 9 picks. They had 8 for quite some time. They end up kind of using some of that extra capital that they gained to move around the board, and I thought that they did a really nice job. Let's actually go in reverse order. I feel like everyone's going to start with the first round pick, so let's start from the bottom and work our way up through the draft picks. Christian, I could smell the torches. I could hear the pitchforks of people riling up at Brett Veach. What is this guy doing? He's got no idea when the Chiefs don't have a running back drafted after they take Jeffrey Bassa. So in the 7th round, the Chiefs, they take Brashard Smith, the running back out of SMU, round 7, pick 228. Just real quick, just what is your instant reaction and what did you think of the pick itself?
So I, like a lot of Chiefs fans, were pretty disheartened at like how long it took for them to actually kind of dive into the playmakers, right? Like we go offensive tackle, interior defensive line, not even a 4-down player. Then another edge player, a cornerback, and then finally in the 4th round, we get a wide receiver. And then we trade up. I'm thinking, oh, here it is. Like at that point, I think Dylan Sampson might have still been on the board. Damian Martinez was still on the board as far as running back goes. So I'm like, oh, here it is. Round 5, pick 156. We are drafting Jeffrey Bassa. Oh my God. Okay. All right. Well, good special teamer. I guess we'll pick up somebody, as a UDFA, something like that. And then the Chiefs turn around and I don't know how, but Brashard Smith is still sitting on the board there. Round 7, pick 228. They trade up and get him. And dude, this is like a perfect fit, I think, for the Chiefs offense. You got about the same idea?
Yeah, I think the running back class is one of those things. I was always under the impression that we weren't going to get nearly as many day 2 running backs. I had a kind of running bet with one of my friends about Cam Scatterby going in the top 100, which by the way went 105. Damn it. One of these things was just like these teams. Not every team needs a running back to begin with, and because the depth was there in this class, there was a lot of running backs that surprised you that were sitting there in round 7, like Damian Martinez. Like I was starting to wonder, like, hey, is there some medicals here or some off-field things with him? That's obviously a guy that the Chiefs had in on a 30 visit. And I'm not gonna lie, I think it kind of hurt to see him go off the board whenever he did, pretty close to the Chiefs. And I think that might have been their initial move to like, all right, let's go ahead and get up here and get another guy that we like in Brashard Smith. But overall, I think that this kind of, and it was something that we've talked about a lot on the show, was that we thought that what the Chiefs were going to do at running back would tell us a little bit about what they think about the room. Like it or not, the Chiefs time and time again passed up some backs who profile more as a true every down back. How many times did they pass on Devin Neal? How many times did they pass on DJ Giddens? How many times did they pass on guys like that for other players? Now, those things don't necessarily equate. I'm sure if Giddens or someone like that was sitting there in the 7th, they might have sprung for him. But I'm thinking that they still have some belief in what Isaiah Pacheco can be. And I want you to rewind you back to this time last year. The Chiefs are coming off back-to-back Super Bowls. Isaiah Pacheco is a huge part of their playoff run where basically the only thing they can trust on offense is Rashee Rice, Isaiah Pacheco, and Travis Kelce. we didn't get that version of Isaiah Pacheco this year. And this time last year, a lot of people still were very confident in his ability. So I think the Chiefs are telling us a little bit that they believe that the injury might have been the bigger part of why he had a down year. He has his limitations as a player. But I think if you look at a backfield of Isaiah Pacheco, of Brashard Smith, and Kareem Hunt, you have several players who can do all the things, right? Like Kareem Hunt, he's a solid pass protector, good in short yardage, can get what's blocked up for him. Isaiah Pacheco, a little bit more dynamic battering ram. And then Brashard Smith. Well, let's get into him as the player, a converted wide receiver at Miami, which, by the way, I thought it was interesting looking over his stats. He actually had his most yards receiving in his career when he switched to running back. So when he was at Miami, they did kind of create opportunities for him as a running back or as a wide receiver to get the ball in his hands. Think kind of Kadarius Toney-esque, where we're kind of feeding him the ball type of things. But they get him in here. He's 4.39 speed, obviously a little bit smaller, about 5'11 and 190. When I looked at, which by the way, little hat tip to myself, I looked at every player the Chiefs drafted this year. Like every single one of them, I did a formal evaluation on. So I was pretty proud of that. And the Chiefs drafted my guy this year with Omarr Norman-Lott. So I was pretty pleased about that too. First time for that. But I will say that, like, I think he's best outside the tackles. But this is a guy who, if he touches the ball 10 times or 5 times a game, I think he can make an impact. And I think the biggest place that you want to see him is some of the stuff that Jerick McKinnon did, where he can run out of the slot and be a mismatch for a linebacker. He can run out of the backfield and be a mismatch for a safety. Like, there's a lot of different things that he can do. He's a guy that if you get him on a wheel route, you actually feel like he could catch it. Like Isaiah Pacheco had a pretty brutal drop in the first game of the year on a wheel route. So I like this. Obviously, with the number one, it's really easy to see shades of Jerick McKinnon. But I went back to that Germany game against the Dolphins, and there's a spot where they just run Jerick McKinnon. They're like out of empty formation, 3x2, and Jerick McKinnon's out of the slot, and he just runs like a slow mesh, and it's just wide open. And it's just like, man, that's something I could see Brashard Smith doing. So I do think that they found a way to add some dynamic ability to the running back position while still only spending a 7th round pick on it.
Oh, yeah. And it's that wide receiver background is very, very apparent when you're watching his tape. By the way, just to go back for a second, it is super nice to have formally evaluated every single player. Like, there's always, over the past like 3 years I've been doing this, there's always one player that the Chiefs draft. And I'm like, and it's way higher than anybody thought. And it's like, oh my God, okay. All right, what is this guy's deal? Like, what are we gonna do? Who is he really? No, luckily, I had also formally evaluated all of these prospects, so it's really, really nice. But yeah, Brashard Smith, he's kind of like that Tyrone Tracy in the backfield, where you absolutely see who played for the Giants. If you don't know, all my fantasy guys know who Tyrone Tracy is because you probably tried to make.
Tracy's a little bit thicker than Brashard
just a little
Smith
bit, yeah.
But I mean, we've seen players like this have real success recently. So I do think that there is something to that Tyrone Tracy kind of Brashard Smith comp.
Yeah, and to be fair, Tyrone Tracy is a little bit better pass protector. So I don't think Brashard Smith is going to come out and have 900 yards rushing and 300 yards receiving like Tyrone Tracy did this past year. But he has that juice. Is he going to be a 3-down guy? I think he's probably got to, work on that pass blocking a little bit better. But other than that, man, solid pick at round 7.
Yeah, and I saw someone here in the chat talking about Elijah Mitchell too. Really what you want to do in this running back room is just like raise the floor, right? So if Elijah Mitchell and, what can I remember his name? The kid from Cal with the crocodile. I can't remember his name.
Oh, Carson Steele.
Carson Steele. Oh, I've got the roster open here. I should have just clicked. But they've got Carson Steele. Like, really what you want to do is just like make those guys compete for a job. If Elijah Mitchell gets back to the 2023 version of himself, yeah, I think he's a better player than Carson Steele. If Carson Steele is going to be a fullback, I don't know. Like, they could, in theory, keep 5 running backs or 4. Carson Steele will play special teams. Brashard Smith has some kick and punt return experience as well too. They've talked about that the new kickoff that they're trying to consistently force people to do more and more of, as far as like return the actual ball. Brashard Smith can factor in there too. So you're going to have some of those guys play special teams. Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt, they're not going to, but you can see it, right? So I do think that this just raises the floor of that room. No, they did not come away with one of the top 5 backs in this class, but you could also make an argument that this roster had much bigger needs. Real quick, Christian, grade the pick if you're giving it, F to A.
Solid A. Like, was probably the last draftable running back that I had on my board, and I had him going a little bit higher than this. So solid pick.
Yeah, I will give it an A minus. I'm a little bit harder of a grader. The only thing that I'll say about it is like I do kind of wish that we could have maybe kept one more of those 7th round picks because there were still some players that I really liked. Or if you're going to like trade up and get a guy who I thought might be a little bit more of a true 3-down guy like Martinez. But either way, I like the player. I like the fit. Nothing wrong with that. So we move on now to Jeffrey Bassa, the linebacker out of Oregon, round 5, pick 156. The Chiefs trade up here again, using the Joe Tooney pick to get up to Jeffrey Bassa. This one I think might have been, I don't want to say surprising, but this one might have been one of the more like eyebrow raising picks, because I think when a lot of people saw them going up, a lot of people were thinking running back here. I certainly was. But instead they go for Jeffrey Bassa, who's a converted safety to linebacker. When I took a look at him, I think the flashes are more of what you're excited about rather than the actual tape right now. He doesn't quite play like a converted safety. He wasn't quite as rangy as I expected for a converted safety, but I will say, I think that he's still new to the position, right? He switched over when he came to Oregon. This year, he was the green dot, a captain of a very good defense. And I think right now with Jeffrey Bassa, yes, like I was kind of going back and forth with someone online about, oh, cool, we passed on a linebacker so we can get Dave Tobe a toy, which, look, I don't doubt that Jeffrey Bassa will play a lot of snaps on special teams. Leo Chanel plays a lot of snaps on special teams, and they're impactful, right? See the blocked kick. But I will say this. I do think that there is a role for Bassa on this defense coming up this year, where I do think that he can do a little bit of the Willie Gay things. Obviously, he's much smaller than Willie Gay, but I do think that he can factor in on maybe some of those just run and chase opportunities that they've had. I guess my question to you is, like, is this more Willie Gay or is this more Dorian O'Daniel as far as like an idea as a player?
I would say probably closer to Willie Gay. I do think that the upside is much higher than Dorian O'Daniel had. One thing about Jeffrey Bassa is that in coverage, like, he can be very, very sticky. And if, the biggest problem for the Chiefs last year was covering running backs out of the backfield and tight ends. Jeffrey Bassa can do that for you. Can he do much of anything else right now? No. He has a very high missed tackle rate. He's not super technical in his linebacker play. I'm not sure that he can come in and, run fit and do well in that. But if you're looking for a guy who has the potential to, hey, let's, work on that technique, that tackling technique, come in, provide legit snaps on 3rd down, like, he could be a player that we see in 2 years or in next year and play legit snaps and, have a huge effect on the defense.
Yeah, I am really excited about him being a weak side backer and dime packages. Like, I think the goal is next year is that it's going to be Nick Bolton and Jeffrey Bassa on the field, and whatever ends up happening with Drew Tranquill and Leo Chanel, it happens. But I don't see a scenario this year where they take Drew Tranquill off the field and dime packages for Bassa. I just don't.
No way.
Now, I do think that there is a way that maybe all 3 guys could live on the field together, because I do think, like, Tranquill, he's filled in at the mic before. If Tranquill is like your Sam, or like if they're doing some sort of like think like it's 3rd and 15 and they might run a draw or something like that, where, those type of things. And I mean, Bassa could be a guy that you might want to go and chase a Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, kind of a size mismatch with Josh Allen. But I do like the long-term play there. And when we talked about linebacker being a little bit of a sneaky need for this team with 2 of the guys going down, and linebackers we've also brought up are always core special teamers. So I like the fit there. This is probably one of their best value picks. This was Dane Brugler's linebacker 5. He was, in the top 100. They were able to get him well down the board here. And honestly, if you go and look at most of the consensus boards where the Chiefs picked, they were one of the best value teams of any draft. Basically, where they picked players was much lower than where they were on consensus big boards, which consensus big boards are kind of weird because basically it's just compiling analysts and experts' opinions. But if you go look over them time over time, you will see that if you actually just drafted all the consensus big board, you would have a pretty good team. So it does, like, groupthink in this instance does apply. So what do you think? Give a grade for Jeffrey Bassa.
I'm going to give it a B. I think there were some other players that maybe could have made a bigger impact year one. I do still like the fit. I do still like the upside. But, when Yaya Black is still on the board, when Mitchell Evans, a good blocking tight end is from Notre Dame, is still on the board, Damian Martinez, another guy who was available, I just can't go A.
Yeah, this is a B plus for me too. I do still have some questions. Like, I do think that there is a possibility that this is a little bit more Dorian O'Daniel than we want to admit. I think that he's a better linebacker than that. Obviously, like, he played the mic for Oregon, but I am a little bit concerned about, like, is he just going to be unplayable against the run, even as a weak side backer in year two? Because there are some missed tackles that do exist on the tape, and sometimes I think his brain goes a little bit faster than his body does, and he kind of like overextends himself in those ways. But I do feel really comfortable, like, this guy could be what Willie Gay was in 2023, where basically he was the fourth linebacker that played some. But Tranquil still played some. Like, I think that that's kind of what they're trying to get back to, where they've got four linebackers that they trust. And I think that the floor is really high for this pick. So I'm going to give it a B plus. Okay, we're moving on. This is probably my favorite pick. Round 4, pick 133, Jalen Royals, the wide receiver out of Utah State. I first off, like, I always thought Jalen Royals was super Chiefsy as far as the yak ability. Basically, it's the same frame. His arms are a little bit smaller than Rashee Rice's, but a very similar frame to Rashee Rice. Did a lot of similar things as Rashee Rice did. He's one of the guys that I actually did quite a bit of work on it. And also, I would just like to say, I'm just saying, like, Matt McMullen, he follows me. A couple other Chiefs guys who work for the Chiefs follow me. Months ago, I tweeted out, I can't wait to own a Chiefs jersey that says Royals on the back of it. And it was a highlight of Jalen Royals. And then magically the Chiefs account tweets it out. The same thing. They're like, imagine owning a Chiefs jersey that says Royals on the back. So that's neither here nor there, but we'll let it slide. But Jalen Royals out of Utah State, really exciting player. His season got cut short this year due to a foot injury, which I do think that probably factored into him being on the board where he is, because feet and wide receivers, they're tricky. That was one of the big things that plagued Sammy Watkins for quite some time, was a foot injury. So they can be tricky, but this guy led all of FBS in the last 2 years in 50-yard plays. Home run ability, great yak ability. The one thing is the offense that he runs at Utah State, it's really unique. He almost exclusively lines up on the left side of the quarterback, and they do this thing where they line up really, really wide, like outside the hash marks, basically almost touching the out of bounds lines. And they basically use all that space that they create on the outside to create more of a slot effect, where there's a lot of grass and stuff to the other side of him. Now, there's a lot of tunnel screens out there, but there is some just straight up vertical stretch that he does as well too. I think this is a high level fit. I think if anything, this makes the wide receiver room more explosive. To me, this is a guy who's coming in and competing at the X alongside of Juju Smith-Schuster for snaps. I still think Juju probably makes the roster, because I think Juju is still defensively the best run blocker on the roster right now. But what I think that the Chiefs now have is they've got 3 or 4 guys who can all run out of the slot, and 3 or 4 guys who can all run at ZRX, with Hollywood, with Rashee Rice, with Xavier Worthy, with Jalen Royals, and with Juju Smith-Schuster. And that just leaves one spot open. I think 5 or 6 wide receivers, probably the most that they keep. Maybe that's Remigio in the punt and return game or something like that. I think, maybe if Sky Moore has an immaculate camp, he can do that for himself, but it's probably going to come down to special teams, as it always does.
Elijah Badger, candidate that could make that.
Don't spoil the lead, yeah.
Jalen Royals. So when I was watching his game, it's almost like shot for shot remake of Rashee Rice. Lined up on one side of the quarterback, ran almost exclusively he played the X first of all, but also ran a bunch of comebacks, ran a bunch of slants, ran a bunch of wide receiver screens. I think something like 30% of his production was from the wide receiver screen, Jalen Royals. So it's you look at him and then you look at the next level stats, and it's okay, Rashee Rice had a horrible contested catch percentage. What's Jalen Royals? It's above average. Okay, so, if we're projecting Jalen Royals in the offense, can he be that Rashee Rice type of player that plays in the slot and can play X, but, we're not really going to force him to? I think absolutely. This, to me, that was my comp for him coming in was Rashee Rice, Jalen Royals. And if there's a substantial part of the season where we don't have Rashee Rice because of the offseason incidents from, a summer or two ago, it's like, could he step in and be somebody that's really productive and contribute to the offense? Absolutely. I'm just a little more conservative on that X role than I think you are. I'm not sure that he can do that. I think that he's big. I mean, he's 6'1", maybe 200 pounds. So yeah, could he stand up and do those things off the line against press man? Probably, but you're kind of projecting a little bit. We didn't see him run over the middle of the field that often when going out on routes. Didn't run a lot of posts, didn't run a lot of like deep crosses or anything like that, which is what he would be asked to do for Kansas City. But as a guy that can come in and be productive, he is a perfect pick. A lot of people had him like day 2, early day 3 type of player. I mean, if you're getting Jalen Royals, who I think mocked with Daniel Harms when we did our mock draft with him, like in the 2nd round or in the 3rd round, you're getting him a round or 2 later. That's insane value.
Yeah, and I think this is just kind of like what the Chiefs are doing with X receiver now. Like we can really kind of give up on the idea of them getting like the 6'4" guy. Like I kind of pounded the table for Dante Thornton, who the Raiders ended up picking up, but he was like basically just college MVS, runs 3 or 4 routes. But really, like they've got about 3 guys. Like Juju, when he came out, he was 6'1", 215. He's probably a little bit heavier than that nowadays. But like they've got like 3 guys who are all that 6 foot 205 like build as far as that, where it's just like Rashee Rice can run out wide. Like there's plenty of opportunities for him to run out wide. Some of his biggest plays have actually come as an X, as a Y. We know that Hollywood Brown can do some Z stuff. To me, I really think that like this wide receiver room is going to come down to what they can get out of Hollywood Brown more than anything, because I think like he's the biggest path for improvement other than just getting Rashee Rice back and healthy. But okay, back to Jalen Royals, great value. I think that this is a guy that you can slow play a little bit too in the wide receiver room. He's not going to have to come in, but the good news is if you do lose Rashee Rice, you can do some of that just instant, like, stuff that they did with him in the first year to just create more yardage for him and yak ability. And I think that this takes a little bit off of Rashee Rice's plate. Coming back from a knee injury, he takes a pounding. Like he's a guy who really, it takes a lot of contact on where he plays in the middle of the field. Maybe you kind of outsource some of that stuff so you can kind of protect him as a player too. And also, as crazy it is, you're 2 years remaining with Rashee Rice on contract before you start getting into franchise tag. So grade the pick.
I'm going to give it an A. My only question with the pick is, Elick Ayomanor is sitting there as well. He's somebody who can come in and play the X the entire time and play out of the slot, I think. Torrey Horton, wide receiver, Colorado State. He was another guy I think I had rated a little bit lower than Jalen Royals, but if you're looking at somebody who can beat press man coverage reliably, you want to have an X on the team that isn't a UDFA. It's like, those are 2 other options that I think might have fit in the offense in its present state a little bit better than Jalen Royals. But you can't knock it too bad though, man. The value, the speed, the athleticism, the scheme fit, it's like just perfect to get. I don't think anything lower than an A is disingenuous.
Yeah, I think it's A minus right in there. Like I get what you're saying. Like the fit I think is a little puzzling, but he's very Chiefs-esque, and I'm not surprised that they went this route. And at least like we didn't end up like I had some concerns that maybe we're going to draft another really small, undersized guy, like a gadget guy. We've talked about like Jalen Lane or Tez Johnson, or back when he wasn't facing the legal issues that he is, Isaiah Bond or someone like that. But I'm glad that they did go for a little bit more complete, bigger body receiver who offers things. So yeah, it's an A minus for me. And like I wonder about Ayomanor, who's like a traditional X, but like Ayomanor doesn't catch the ball well. Like that's a kind of a problem for him. So this is probably the best value pick on the board. Another player that like I was doing a contest with some of my friends, and we put like players that we felt were most likely to be Chiefs. I had both Nohl Williams and Jalen Royals. The Chiefs trade up 10 picks with using, I believe that's where they used the 4th round pick from Joe Tooney, if I'm correct.
Yeah, it is.
They go get Nohl Williams, the cornerback out of Cal. And this I love. I love this pick. I love the fit. One of the things I really like about him too is his ability to generate turnovers. led all of FBS in the last 2 years in turnovers and passes defensed. Really good at getting his hands on the ball, which he combines a lot of the Spags traits with a bigger physical body guy who likes to get in the phone booth with the press man corner, plays the run solidly, average long speed with a 4.5 40. But this is a guy who gets his hands on the ball. Like, the Chiefs have a lot of these guys who are big physical, but they never get their hands on the balls. I love his ability to actually generate turnovers. So this, to me, made all the sense in the world. And we talked about this quite a bit. Christian Fulton never played 17 games in a season. You get Trent McDuffie back in the slot. That's exciting. You hope Jalen Watson can be more of what he was the first 4 or 5 games before he suffered that injury. That's a really high floor corner room. And guess what? Like, if you have to push Najee Johnson or Joshua Williams to make the roster, that's okay. It's okay to have depth at cornerback position, because guess what? Next year, a lot of those guys are moving on, and you're looking at, in 2026, Christian Fulton, Trent McDuffie, and Nohl Williams running out there. So I really like the pick. I know some people had him outside their top 100, and I also know he had a ton of fans who were pounding the table for him much sooner. So I don't have a problem with them trading up and going and getting him, because I do think that this was a bigger need than people wanted to acknowledge, especially when they get a guy who can run outside. I didn't want to mess around with the slot guy. I like Jacob Parrish. Obviously, we love Jahdae Barron here and some of the other slot guys. But we wanted a guy that could be able to keep McDuffie in that spot that he's going to be at his best. So Nohl Williams for me, I'm giving it another A. I know, like, it feels like I'm being biased, but really, you look across the board, a lot of people really like the Chiefs draft. We're not just blowing smoke here. What did you think of the Nohl Williams pick? Give it a grade.
So I'm a little bit more critical on this pick than I think you are. I have it as a B-. I think trading up for Nohl Williams was an interesting decision. I didn't have him rated that highly. I really have questions about his man coverage ability. And there are some times where Spags likes to throw out the zone blitz, and that'll be fine. Like, Nohl Williams will do a great job getting back, getting ready to make an interception. But there are some of those plays, man. Like I said, whenever I go through and look at prospects, I look at the highlights, and then I go through and I watch the film. It's like, hey, what's your peak? What's the absolute best that people can compile of you? And then let me see what you're doing on the day-to-day. And Nohl Williams, you see the highlights and you're like, man, he's kind of out of position when he makes that interception. I mean, very, very Marcus Peters-esque, where it's like, man, you're in the right position, but you're not. You know what I mean? Like, that next level instinct maybe is what puts him there. But I just have concerns about maybe some of the more routine stuff that he's going to give up. I'm not entirely sure he's as polished as a lot of teams viewed him. But at 85, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, I can kind of see what you're talking about. I think there's probably a couple of plays for him that I wonder, like, if you get the certain officiating crew, that he's that guy that's like, has 3 DPI penalties in a game, because I can see it. He is a little bit handsy, and I do wish he was a little bit better in press. Like, I feel like he could impact the receiver at the release point a little bit more in press, but overall, I like it. And I do get kind of what you're saying. The man-to-man skills aren't as strong there, but even like the most heavy man-to-man teams in the NFL are still running at like a 30 or 40% clip, or less than that. So I'm not too concerned about that.
No. And don't get me wrong. I mean, a B- is still a fantastic grade for a cornerback that's going to play a specific role in the Spags defense, who, like you said earlier, raises the floor. Like, what's the floor of this CB room now? Well, it's Nohl Williams playing outside. It's not Najee Johnson playing in the slot and Trent McDuffie playing outside. It's like, and that's a completely different defensive back group. But
yeah,
overall, like, go ahead.
I just think, like, the Chiefs have basically sunk a pick into the cornerback position every single draft. So they're telling you that depth there really matters. And quite frankly, it's proven to be true. And they needed more last year. So they invest in an important position here.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, let's move on. This one surprised me a little bit. Ashton Gillotte at pick 66, the edge out of Louisville. I got to tell you, there's quite a few people, or quite a few players on this board that when I looked at them, I was just like, boy, I would be surprised if the Chiefs took them. I will say Gillotte plays like a Spagnuolo defensive end. His frame is not quite the same. His frame, honestly, is a little bit similar to a Mike Dana. We're a little bit more stocky. Arms are a little bit shorter than usual, but he plays with a fire in his gut that you love to see. And also he's one of the like smaller players, and there are these type of players. Nolan Smith from Georgia was this type of guy. He's smaller than Gillotte was. Josiah Stewart in this class from Michigan, who the Rams took, another one of those guys who's like, hey, he's small, but he plays his ass off in the run. And power is one of his predominant traits. And one of the things that I really like about him, when I went back and took a look at him at like 145 on Friday night, he plays from the 3-tech some. Like he can, and like, you know, so this one excites me because I see the vision for what they want here. And I think that like this is a guy who's going to put Felix Anaduke-Uzama on notice, because I mean, FAU was kind of brought in to be the same type of things. Gillotte actually does have some bend in his ankles, which most Chiefs edge rushers don't have. And yeah, you can see him coming off of like a stunt or something like that, coming through the B gap and having the closing speed to be able to finish and still set the edge at a high enough level. To me, the big question is like, does that edge setting transfer? Because if you drafted a pass rush specialist in that spot, I'm a little concerned because the Chiefs, they just haven't really utilized that type of guy. But there's another clear need here with Karlaftis' deal coming to an end. They don't have an extension with him. Obviously, I've got the 5th-year option that they will pick up. I assume that'll be announced any day now. And then, you know, FAU's still a question mark, and then they're relying on Charles Omenihu again. So I think if the defensive line has a ton of ceiling if players all hit it. It's just who else going to hit it and getting them to hit it at the same time.
Oh, yeah. And you talked about Mike Dana. Like, I kind of see him as like a Mike Dana plus type of player, like a little bit more bend, a little bit more power. You know, obviously he has to fit into the system and get worked in. But it was so funny. I heard, I was just reading through X the other day, and after we made the pick, and it was like, did you know that Ashton Gillotte, he trains with George Karlaftis? And I'm like, yeah, of course he does. Of course he does. They play the exact same. Like that.
Well, and you bring it up. I forgot to bring that connection up. So Gilotte's defensive line coach at Louisville was actually George Karlaftis' defensive line at Purdue, and then he went to Louisville. So that's the connection there. But it is kind of cool to see them. And you know, I'm sure they asked George about him, the character, and all those type of things. And this like another high motor, high football character type of guy too. And the Chiefs, they like those things. Like you've got Chris Jones on the inside, they've got good coverage in the back. Those cleanup sacks, they matter. We've seen some huge moments from Chiefs defensive linemen that are just purely hustle, and Gillotte has that ability.
Yeah, 100%. And you talk about the relentlessness, right? Like his pass rush win rate per PFF is 21%, which is insanely high. Part of that is a little bit because he just refuses to stop. He's got that George Karlaftis, like my initial move. Okay, now you're wearing down. Now I'm going to do another move and then one more. And it's like when you have Chris Jones coming up the middle and Omarr Norman-Lott, who we'll talk about in a second, it's like, dude, that third level, like you don't need all three guys to rush through the A and B gaps and, you know, attempt to get a sack. You got to maintain those rush lanes. He's somebody that can do that, can push the pocket back and make it really, really difficult for a quarterback where he has to step up into Chris Jones. Maybe he has to, you know, try to go outside. And then Ashton Gillotte has that like speed and the intensity to track him down and get him. So perfect scheme fit. I have it as a B. Just because I think the ceiling maybe isn't necessarily as high as I think other players who were drafted around this area. Shavon Revel was available. If you were looking for a pure power guy, I know you're going to like this. Landon Jackson was still available. And then if you were looking for just a speed edge rusher, Princely Uman.
Yes. He was
also there, who has maybe the nastiest spin move in the draft. And so you could have gone any of those ways. I think the ceiling would be higher for them. And I think, you know, maybe Ashton is just kind of mid in the best, like high mid, like Mike Dana's fine, but you could have had maybe like a Lucas Van Ness sort of type in Landon Jackson, or, you know,
it will be tough watching Landon Jackson play for the Bills, as he was another one of my guys. But I will say, like, I do think it was nice to see them try this again. And I think they did a nice job of straddling the line between, like, let's go get Josh Uche, like, and let's get a guy who can do a little bit of both for us. So hopefully this works. Yeah, I'm a B plus on this. They let the pick come to them. They weren't overly aggressive with it. I was kind of glad to see the double dip on the defensive line. I think that they've needed to get more dynamic here, and I was glad that they didn't get overly aggressive with this pick. This was one of the picks that I was afraid that they might move in the first round, the Titans third, and be like, oh, well, we have our own third round pick to play with. Let's get into what might be the most controversial. I want to call it controversial, most discussed pick in the Chiefs draft, and it's pick 63, Omarr Norman-Lott, the interior defensive lineman from Tennessee. He was one of my guys. As you probably know by now, or maybe you don't, at Tennessee, he ran a very heavy rotation on the defensive line, played about 17 snaps a game, was 20th on the defense as far as snaps played goes. This is a guy who saw almost all of his work on passing downs in pass rush situations when he was able to come in, pin his ears back, and be super fresh compared to an offensive lineman who might be on play 9 or play 10 of a drive. He did not see the run a lot, therefore he was not particularly effective at the run. You can look at this one or two ways. You can look at this and say, okay, well, he's one of the freshest guys on the field. He's coming in, and because he only plays 17 snaps a game, his pass rush win percentage, which is the best among all interior defensive linemen in the class, it's high because if you make 2 pressures on 17 snaps, that's a pretty high percentage. Whereas if you're playing 40 or 45 snaps a game, that number is going to be less. Or you can look at this like I choose to look at this. I'm kind of, people did this with the Lions draft a couple of years ago where they kind of like rearranged the picks, and it's like, okay, I like this order. I like these players. I just didn't love the order. If you flip maybe Gillotte or Nohl Williams or one of those other guys into a different slot, maybe bump Lott down a little bit, I feel a lot better about it. No pun intended. But I come down to this. If Omarr Norman-Lott can be the pass rush ass kicker that he was at Tennessee, all of this works. You don't stop the run so good, that's fine. We can work around that. We can find sub packages. We can find other bodies to do those things. There's a lot of guys who are pretty affordable in the draft, in free agency, who can come in and stop the run. But if he's going to be an ass kicker in the pass rush, you're going to be thrilled as hell. On 3rd and 9, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, you've got Chris Jones, Omarr Norman-Lott, you've got Nick Bolton mugged up over the A gap, and it's like, hey, we're bringing 6. You're going to have to account for every one of these guys, and we're going to get one-on-one for Bolton, for Norman-Lott, for Charles Omenihu and Chris Jones and George Karlaftis. Good luck. And that's when I'm going to be really glad he's on the team. In those situations, they matter. Would this be a pick that makes a lot of sense for a team like the Patriots who are, rebuilding and really just trying to get high floor players? No. This is a bit of a luxury pick. And I'm also here to tell you, I have clips on my timeline of him being effective against the run. That burst, that rip, those things that he can. He's a refined pass rusher for what he is. But we got to see more of it for sure. But this is a boom or bust play. But like I said, if he can be an ass kicker in the pass rush, none of the rest will matter.
Yeah, and see, I'm even a little bit more optimistic than you are. Like, I don't see this as boom or bust at all. Like, Omarr Norman-Lott's going to be effective against the pass. He just is. Like, the effectiveness from that 3 tech, even from one, like, a lot of people don't know this. He played some 4 technique, which, if you guys don't know, is right over the tackle. Like, a third of his snaps were on, straight up, head up on the tackle, which is a big percentage of your snaps, especially when people call you an interior defensive pass rusher. It's like, no, I can rush from the 4 tech or the 5 tech even. That might be a little difficult for him. You got to have a little bit more speed to beat those tackles. But it's like, hey, listen, Spags is looking for a chess piece. We just lost Tershawn Wharton in free agency. Let's bring in a guy who can come in, beat guys from the 3 or the 4 tech. We can move Chris Jones around. We can move him around. We can blitz people. If he can beat one-on-ones, he's going to be effective in the defense. Like, to me, this pick was like so out of the park. I have this as an A. A lot of people had him going. I mean, not a lot of people. I heard a few people talking about him at the end of the first to Kansas City, just based off of upside and based off of efficiency. Like, this to me was a home run pick. Like, we're going to be hearing Omarr Norman-Lott's name a bunch on Sundays, and he's going to be kicking guards' asses for the foreseeable future.
Ranked 78th on the consensus big board. There was a couple years ago in 2022, which, as you might know, is like one of the best drafts the Chiefs have ever had. They almost exclusively ran off the PFF big board. I'm not saying that they sit there and just like, oh crap, let's just use their board, but they liked a lot of the same players, and that worked out really well for them. obviously. The PFF was really high on Omarr Norman-Lott. The PFF, the consensus big board has him at 78. He's a precarious evaluation because of the limited snaps, all those type of things. So I wonder about grabbing him where they did, but they must have felt like someone else was coming to get him. Also, by the way, just file this away for 2026. The Chiefs brought in, they had a 30 visit with Josh Simmons. They had a 30 visit with Omarr Norman-Lott. I believe they had a 30 visit with several of their UDFAs as well too. Issei Pole. So that trend continues of like some of the people that are on that 30 visit list when we reviewed them, they were going to become Chiefs, and Norman-Lott is the next addition to that. So for me, it's a B-. At least they didn't trade up for him, those type of things. I think that there's some questions. Like, I wonder if maybe they were. I need to go back and look at the players that came. I was pretty distracted on Friday night. I need to go back and look at the players who came off between Norman-Lott and Gillotte and see if, like, was there a player that maybe they could have gotten there or something like that, and maybe grab Gillotte. And then there's some holes in this game, right? But this is a bit of a luxury pick, but I think that this is a spot that they can afford to do it. To me, this just speaks volumes of, like, you want to talk about winners of the day. Mike Pennell, Siaka Ika, and what's his name? The defensive lineman that they have from Florida State last year. That's a UDFA. But it's pretty obvious that they're not too concerned about the nose tackle position, which is saying something considering that they've got Ashton Gillotte and Omarion Hampton in the division now. So Fabian Lovett, by the way, is the name that I was thinking of.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Let's get on to
hold on. Just quickly. So I can tell you the two names that were drafted between the Chiefs picks, if you want to hear it. Andrew Makuba, who I really, really liked. That would have been a good get. And Darius Alexander, defensive tackle out of Toledo.
That's the name, Darius Alexander. Yeah. Like, he needs to be better than Darius Alexander. And, one thing that I will say is, like, Norman-Lott is a lot younger than Darius Alexander. Like, Darius Alexander can rent a car. Norman-Lott cannot. So, by the way, that's 25 for those of you who may not be 25. But that's the name. Like, he's got to be better than that. We do the Keon Coleman, Xavier Worthy thing. That's the name he's got to be better than. All right, Josh Simmons. This is let's be real, right? Like, this class can go from like, pretty good, it's just another draft class, whatever, to a home run with Josh Simmons. You can go back to the live stream. Someone graciously put the timestamp of when the Chiefs started on the clock there for all of our shenanigans that were going on. But really, this is the pick that's going to define the class, right? If he comes in and isn't able to play a full season because he's constantly injured, or if we're seeing, talk about moving him to guard in a couple of years, and the Chiefs pick up Juwan Taylor's next year and don't let him walk, like, this will be a disaster. You gotta give props to the Chiefs for their ability to stick and pick and actually gain a 5th round pick that they ended up making. Instead of trading up, right? Like, there's a big difference between taking him at 32 and taking him at 24 or 23, which was kind of the rumor, right? Really, this comes down to two things. What do you think of the player, and what do you think of his medicals? The rumor from, like, I went back and listened to Todd McShay's stream. He was more convinced that the reason for the fall for him was more about the character than it was the medicals, which is more of like maturity football character stuff than just like he's a bad dude. Something that completely changed my analysis on Josh Simmons is when I found out that he is actually like part Samoan. All of his family have Samoan last names. I don't know where he picked. Even Brugler didn't get into it in the Beast about why he goes by Josh Simmons, because both of his last family have like Samoan last names, which I cannot pronounce. But once I knew that he was like part Samoan, I was all the way in on this pick. You got to have at least one Samoan offensive lineman. So we're like full send now. But in reality, and someone's brought it up here in the chat, that he was a top 3 tackle in this class and would have been easily tackle 1 if he continued on the trajectory that he was on. His tape for the beginning part of this year is as good as it gets. And you listen to the way that like Dane Brugler or some of the other guys who really cover offensive line play at a high level, the way that they glow about him, it says something. And this is not a project tackle, a smooth mover in space who has the agility to get out on reach blocks. I wouldn't call him an ass kicker in the run game, but he's athletic enough. And I believe the Chiefs director of scouting said today he compared him to Christian Darrisaw and Rashawn Slater. I'm okay with those names. That will work for me. That will be okay. So, like, I'll give the pick a solid A because they were able to recoup the fifth. They didn't trade back. They let the board play to them. And yeah, it's going to come down to the medicals. And I'm not too worried about the character stuff because it doesn't sound particularly heinous or anything. I mean, considering the Ravens, they took Mike Green whenever they had Justin Tucker still on the roster. Like there's a lot worse situations going on here versus a guy that they just need to motivate. Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, those are good guys to motivate any young player. So, I'm glad that they're giving him a runway too here, where he does not have to come in and win the job. They're already giving him a better opportunity, in my opinion, than they did Kingsley Suamataia.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And speaking of, we have 2 Samoans on the roster now. So something about those Samoan offensive linemen, those big badasses that'll go up there and fight for your quarterback. We got 2 of them. So maybe it'll be better this year. We'll see. Josh Simmons, as a player, you said it perfectly. Like, he was a top 3 tackle in the draft. Outside of the medicals, I think he was a top 1 tackle in the draft. I think he was by far the best. If that would have, you extrapolate out what he did during a short time on the field this past year. For me, this is an A+ pick. I absolutely love it. If they're comfortable with the concerns outside of football, outside of the medicals, then I am. You just got to trust Brett Veach on that. And not to be too homery, but if they're looking at the medicals and saying that he's going to be okay, then I trust them. They've dealt with a few of those types of injuries in the past. I'm sure that they have a pretty good grasp on the recovery time and, how it's going to affect them long term. This was the pick that I think everybody else in the NFL was hoping, praying to God would not happen. It's like, hey, will they get their franchise left tackle in this draft? And I'll be real. We were going through the mock drafts. I did probably 1,000 of them before the season or before the draft started. And I was like, okay, well, Josh Simmons is not going to be there. Who are we picking then? Oh, Travion Henderson. Okay, all right. Like, I can get behind that. It's like, oh, okay. Shavon Revel. Yeah, I can get behind that pick at the end of the first. Okay. It's like, and then he started falling. And I was like, okay, like this is fine. Don't say anything. Don't, jinx the draft gods. And then they trade back. And I'm like, oh, well, then we know they got him. They're not trading. They're not going to let the Eagles trade up a pick in front of them to steal the player they've been waiting to pick. And that to me was a Veach masterclass. Like, took advantage of the opportunity, let the Eagles get who they wanted to get, Jahad Campbell, who's a fantastic player and is going to be a badass for their team for the next 5 or 10 years. But then we get Josh Simmons, the missing piece of the offensive line. To me, this was, just a perfect pick. Loved every single aspect of it. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And then we got questions for Veach and the medical staff. But as far as a player, man, he's fantastic. He's exactly what the Chiefs will use. He'll get outside on zone runs. He'll beat up people in the middle if we run duo or power 1 or 2 times a game. And pass setting, he's fantastic.
Yeah, and I think, like, one thing I want to caution people about too is, like, if he's a starting tackle, it doesn't matter where it's at. Like, if he ends up at right tackle because he takes over for Juwan Taylor or whatever, and he's just good there, that's okay too. Like, it's okay. I'll take a stud right tackle. I'll take Joe Alt. I'll take that. And just have one of those spots locked up. We saw, like, the impact that Mitch Schwartz had on this offensive line. If you can be great at a tackle spot, take it. Doesn't matter if it's at left or right. And it'll be interesting to see how this is handled. Like, it sounds like he should be ready to go for camp. He's already squatting 225 pounds and doing sled work. So it sounds like he's well on the path to recovery. The Chiefs are taking a bet on their medical staff here, which is a good bet to make over the last couple of years. They had some issues back with Eric Berry and Justin Houston and Jamal Charles. Some of those days, the medical staff wasn't quite as great. But something that I didn't know, Brandon Graham, early in his career, had this patellar injury. And that was back when Andy Reid and Rick Burkholder were working with him in Philly. And he went on to have a fantastic career. So they've got experience here. We can't pretend to know those type of things. I'm not going to. So hopefully this solves one of the tackle questions.
Oh, yeah. So and it's a pick for the future as well. Like, people don't talk about that enough. Is like, we saved $20 million by cutting Juwan Taylor this upcoming year. So saving that money, getting somebody who can come in and play that position. I have a question though, Price. We didn't put this in the script, but is there a real shot that who's the tackle we just signed?
Jalen Moore.
Jalen Moore.
Yeah.
Is there a real shot that Jalen Moore does not play this year, and that what happens is we have Josh Simmons out there playing left tackle, and then at the end of the year we cut Juwan Taylor and put Jalen Moore right tackle? Do you think that's a reasonable
The one thing that I wonder about that hypothetical is like, if Jalen Moore isn't good enough to play left tackle, why do you feel great about sticking him at right tackle next year?
Well, maybe it could just be they don't want to switch him up on positions. Like if they had Josh Simmons coming in and he's automatically a stud, it's like, hey,
Yeah.
we want to put this guy at a position.
Hey, I
who's
would
playing.
absolutely love for the scenario, like one, because like a lot of teams, they feel inclined to play the paid players, right? Like, hey, we gave Jalen Moore real money. We're going to pay him because he's the guy getting paid like a veteran. If you're telling me that Josh Simmons is just so clear and away, 100% healthy and looks like the better player and that they're just confident enough in him day one, I'd be thrilled. Also, I felt that about Kingsley Suamataia, and then like Trey Hendrickson is like doing the gym class thing where he like de-pantses him and runs around him. Yeah, I don't know. Like I think honestly, this kind of goes like back to like the Royals. They have this really good prospect, Jack Caglione, who's a power hitter. And like a lot of people, they want him to come up as soon as possible. And like, really, I just want what's best for Jack Caglione's long-term development because I want him to be a great player. And if that means playing in AA or AAA for a couple of years, I'm okay with that because I want him to reach his full potential. Same with Josh Simmons, right? I think ideally, Josh Simmons doesn't play this year because he's resting, he's getting healthy, he's learning the game, or it's a situation where maybe the Chiefs aren't happy with what they're getting from Juwan Taylor and they plug him in. I'll be very interested to see what the framing is of this from the coaching staff. Is this an open competition at left tackle, or is Jalen Moore the presumed starter? We will have to see. Real quick, let's get into some other stuff. We did run long here. Overall, though, overall, Chiefs draft class, they bring a lot of really good things to the table. I give the entire draft an A-. I think that looking at what they did next to the consensus board, the ability for them to be patient, using the trade-ups moderately, not giving up a ton. I didn't love giving up the Joe Tooney pick, but, I think it allowed them to navigate the board effectively. So real quick, let's go over some superlatives here from this draft class. So I'm going to say something, and then you just fill in the blank or you answer the question. Your favorite pick from this draft class is?
Josh Simmons.
Okay. For me, it's Jalen Royals as far as value and where they got him and the fact that they continued to invest in the wide receiver position. Your least favorite pick from this draft class?
Ashton Gillotte. Sorry, Ashton. Not my favorite pick.
Yeah, for me, even as someone who has Omarr Norman-Lott in their My Guys article, it's probably there, like in that spot, just because of the value and the questions that do surround him as the player. This is a question. This is a little bit of a trick question. Who leads the rookies in snaps played in 2025?
Ooh, I'm gonna say Nohl Williams, cornerback. Like,
really,
for all the bad things I said about him, yeah, there's a clear need at the position. Like, if you're telling me he starts and it's him, Jalen Watson and Trent McDuffie, like, I'm okay with that.
So you think that he might beat out Jalen Watson, or are you thinking that he's just going to like end up playing more snaps because of injuries to Fulton or?
Yeah. Well, part of it, Fulton, he's not going to make it through the whole season, but I think there's a real shot that, Christian Fulton goes down, Nohl Williams comes in, and he's the better fit. Maybe he has some good ball production, and then he just takes over halfway through the season. That's a serious possibility that could happen.
For me, it's Jeffrey Bassa because I'm pretty confident that he's going to be a four-phase special team contributor and mix in on defense. And I think that's where a majority of his snaps are. Now, to add that like twist to it, which player will play the most offensive or defensive snaps? So eliminating special teams, which rookie will play the most?
I'll give you a different answer here. I'll say Jalen Royals. I think that maybe he provides something on the offense that Juju Smith-Schuster doesn't, even if he isn't necessarily like an instant fit on the offense as the X. Plus that Rashee Rice thing could pop its ugly head up at any point during the season. So
the easy answer is like Josh Simmons, because like if an offensive lineman plays, they play every snap, right? So usually like the top getters on every offense is the quarterback and the offensive lineman because they play every single snap. So even if he gets in there for half the season, if someone gets injured or they just want to go in a different direction, that could easily be the right answer. So I'm going to take him and just like say like, hey, maybe they're just not thrilled with one of the play that they're getting from one of the guys, or maybe they're just so thrilled with his play that they're like, hey, let's put him in there. So I'll go with Josh Simmons. Okay, so next superlative. Where does Josh Simmons play his first game at? Left tackle or right tackle?
I'm going to say left tackle. I think the scenario we talked about just a little bit earlier plays out. And I think that Josh Simmons is going to be far and away the best guy at the position. And who cares if we're paying a swing tackle $20 million a year if our left tackle is one of the best in the league and our swing tackle can take over next year?
Okay. Yeah, I tend to agree. I think that they'll try to keep him at left tackle, and I think it's what they should do, honestly. Like, I think that that's what they just need to do, is to do what's best for his development and help him grow. And I think that that's going to be a big part of it. This one I kind of liked. UDFA with the best chance to make the roster. Who do you think the undrafted free agent that has the best chance to make the roster is?
Elijah Badger, wide receiver out of Florida. I don't know how many games you got to watch of him. Well, I'm sure you watched a bunch of his games scouting the other wide receivers on Florida. But Elijah Badger is like the typical X that we've been begging Veach for the past 3 or 4 years. Like, can go up there on the line, beat press man coverage reliably. There was a game he played against Florida State where he just, who was that cornerback that just got drafted from Florida State? Thomas, maybe?
Oh, Jalen Travis.
No. From Florida State.
Florida State, yeah, Jalen Travis. Or DJ Lagway, or DJ Ungunlali, or whatever was the quarterback there. Jalen Travis was the quarterback last year at Florida State.
No, cornerback.
Oh, Azareé Thomas. Okay,
Azareé Thomas.
Yeah,
Azareé Thomas. He played Azareé Thomas, great press man, cornerback, just kicked his ass in and out every single play that he lined up against him. Like, Elijah Badger is like that. There are some pundits who had him above Luther Burden in their rankings. And I'm not talking about like some no-name guys. I'm talking about some guys who have, serious podcasts, serious followings, had him as a top 10 wide receiver in the draft. Now, I'm not that high on him, but you're 6'1", 200 pounds, you run a 4.4, you'll fit in the offense. We'll find a spot for you. And I think that he could absolutely be one of those players that gets stashed and then has a breakout game somewhere through the season.
Elijah Badger played 3 seasons with Ricky Pearsall and outproduced him all 3 years at Arizona State and at Florida. So there's something there. I'm going to go Issa Pole from Washington State. Really unique story in his personal background. Didn't start playing football until 2021. His parents actually granted him permission to be like adopted by his cousins because they thought it was going to be a better life for him. So his parents just kind of like willingly gave him up. He's a guy that I think like has a chance to stick at guard or tackle. But man, like I know that there are some really big believers in his ability. He did have a little bit of shorter arms, has only played exclusively left tackle, but man, there's just like 5% of me that just thinks like, did the Chiefs get 2 starting tackles in this draft? It would be like manna falling from the heavens, which is a biblical reference for those of you that don't know. If like the Chiefs just came away with 2 tackles in one class, especially in a UDFA, probably not likely, but it's exciting to think about. So Issa Pole, which is how you pronounce his name, by the way, according to the Beast. All right. Last question. More receiving yards in 2025. Juju Smith-Schuster, Jalen Royals, or Brashard Smith? I think this might be a little bit harder than you think it is.
Honestly, I'm going to have you answer first. I'm not entirely sure.
So I think there's a really good chance that Jalen Royals just, this is more of a red shirt year for him. And I think honestly, you as a Chiefs fan, you probably hope that is the case because Rashee Rice is doing his thing. Xavier Worthy's doing his thing. You're still getting something out of Travis Kelce and those guys. Last year, Juju Smith-Schuster. Oh, hold on. My wife is home, so my dogs, they need to bark at her. 231 yards for Juju. That's not a super high floor or super high ceiling. I'm going to go Brashard Smith. I think there's a chance that he just works in as the passing game down back day one and can have some big chunks. To go back to that really big season from Jerick McKinnon, obviously, like, let's be clear, that season from Jerick McKinnon was pretty crazy special as far as receiving goes. That's not something that you're really looking to just like emulate. He had 512 yards receiving that year. So that's pretty easy to do. I think Royal is going to be brought along slowly.
Yeah, I could see that. I think the easy answer here is Juju, just because I think he's going to get the most reps. He's the most trusted guy. But there is a real chance that Brashard Smith just brings something to this offense that Andy Reid can't resist. And even if he's just out there on passing downs and he's running routes, we could go like 5 wide, empty backfield. Brashard Smith is out there running routes against some poor linebacker or cornerback who has to try to cover somebody who runs a 4-3 essentially and played wide receiver and is 190 pounds. And you go, well, okay, this guy's going to be open. It's just about when. For me, it's probably Brashard Smith. That just like, especially with the need at the position for a receiving running back to kind of take that Jerick McKinnon role, it's got to be him, right?
For sure. Well, guys, we're going to go ahead and call this a show. We have had a absolutely awesome draft cycle with all of you. We thank you for your support, whether it's through the live chat or reading through the mock drafts or looking at the Arrowhead Addict big board. There's still a lot of great stuff to talk about, like the schedule release, and we'll be breaking down the roster and everything through camp. We've got a show every single day of the week. You can expect the Intangibles on Monday, Tuesdays with Sterling, the Kingdom Wednesday. The Kingdom Queens are on Wednesday. You've got the OG Hour on Thursday and our new show on Friday. That was what was on Wednesday with Adam Bess and Sterling Holmes, Freaky Friday. So we got a show every single day of the week. The content is going to start slowing down here on the NFL, but not the Chiefs content over at Arrowhead Addict. So if you haven't already, make sure you like and subscribe. Thank you for your nice comments in the chat. For Christian, for producer Richard, who we did not give a shout out to on the live stream, who did an incredible job spinning all those plates. He always does a fantastic job. Thank you. And as always, go Chiefs.